In this little video, we wanted to show you how the Blackboard GradeCenter possibly calculates final marks differently than the SIMS gradebook. I'm working today with Patsy McIntosh, and we have set up this fake Blackboard course with a number of evaluations in the GradeCenter to match exactly what Patsy has in the SIMS gradebook. In this particular example, we have 10 quizzes, and I'll just scroll across and let you see those. And then immediately after quiz number 10, we have a weighted column called the quiz total, which basically takes all 10 quizzes and calculates a final mark for all the quizzes itself. This quiz total column will ultimately become 30% of the final mark for the student. And then carrying on in the GradeCenter, we have the research project, which is worth 15% of the final mark. You can see it right up there in the black letters, possible points 15. We have a homework, which is 10% of the final mark. Case studies are 10% of the final mark. Carrying on, we've got self-reflection, which is 5%. Professional ethics is 10%. And one exam worth 20% of the final mark, which all totaled up adds to 100% of the final mark. So this last column will be a weighted column which adds up the quiz total column at 30% and then the respective percentages of all the other remaining evaluations in this course. So in the next little section of this video, we're going to show you what it looks like in SIMS gradebook, and then we're going to go ahead and enter some marks in these and simultaneously see how Blackboard compares with SIMS gradebook.
Here is a look at the SIMS gradebook. Patsy has this set up. You can see in this screenshot there are the various categories with the percentage weighting of each. For example, you can see that the quiz one down here is worth 30% of the final mark and all of the others, etc. Now, Patsy, if we could just take a look at the individual assessments. Here they are. There's 3 pages of these. You can see on this page quiz 1 to 7. On the next page you can see quiz 8, 9, and 10, the project, the homework, the case study, the reflection, and finally the ethics and exam. And for this student in the first row, Jason Bourgeois, we've emptied all of the marks out of that. By the way, this is just a play example that Patsy has going. It's not a real live report in Gradebook. It's just one that she uses for training purposes. So we've set up Blackboard to be identical to the SIMS Gradebook, and now in the next few screens we're going to go ahead and start entering some grades, and we'll take shots of these systematically as we're going through so we can see how Blackboard compares to SIMS Gradebook.
Okay, so now what we've done is we've gone ahead and entered marks for each of the 10 quizzes. And by the way, each quiz is out of a possible 3 points. So here you can see the marks for quizzes 1 all the way through to quiz 10. And at the end of the 10 quizzes, the weighted column that we set up for the quiz total is showing 76.83%. What that means is, out of a possible 100% for all of the quizzes category, the student has scored 76.83% out of the possible 100% for all the quizzes combined. Okay, here we are back in SIMS Gradebook for a second, and you can see that we have entered all of the marks for the quizzes, and we have the same quiz total at this point of 76.83. It's the same number that's showing in Blackboard. The current overall score for the grade at this point is 23.05. Now if we jump back over to Blackboard and take a look at our final mark, we're showing a score of 76.83. There's a reason for that, and that's because when we set up this weighted column, we did not check off the button that says do not calculate this as a running total. And that is right here. When it's on yes, Blackboard will ignore any cells that do not have data entered into them at this point. So what we want to do right now is set that over to no, which means that Blackboard will ignore any of the Did I say that right? Blackboard will ignore any of the cells that do not have that do not have data entered into them. And by checking that over to no, so that it does not represent a running total, we can see that we have a final mark to date, after all the quiz marks have been put in, of 23.05. So far, that's matching what we have in SIMS Gradebook for the current overall score. So now we'll go ahead and enter some more marks into the Blackboard GradeCenter. Okay, so now we've gone ahead and entered the scores for all the remaining evaluations in the Blackboard course. And what this final weighted column has calculated is a final score of 78.2%. And that is a combination of taking that quiz total column right there, the quiz total column, and using that mark right there as 30% of the final score, and then calculating all these other columns as individual columns and coming up with the final score of 78.2. And when we look at SIMS Gradebook, lo and behold, we have the exact same score as a calculated final mark for of 78.2 for this course. Okay, so now I want to show you something very interesting. What we have done in this example is we have gone into SIMS Gradebook and we have removed the mark for quiz number 5, as if the student had not done it yet. And the way that SIMS Gradebook works, if the due date comes and goes for this particular quiz, Gradebook will automatically enter a 0 into that space and make its calculations based on the 0. So with quiz number 5's mark removed, now you can see that this student has a final overall grade for this course of 75.2. Let's jump back over to Blackboard for a second and take a look at what happens when we remove quiz number 5. You can see I've taken it out and there's nothing in the Grade Center for quiz number 5. And if I scroll to the end now, Blackboard has calculated a final score of 77.3 for this student. And remember, in SIMS Gradebook, we had a score of 75.2. That's almost 2 full percentage points different between Blackboard and SIMS Gradebook. There is an explanation for that, and I'll show it to you just very quickly, and it's got to do with this weighted column in Blackboard. It's called the quiz total column. If I just go into that column information and scroll down here, I can see that we have this set up to calculate that column as a running total, which means that Blackboard is going to ignore all of the empty cells that are used to calculate this column. If I select that to no instead of yes and submit that, that means that Blackboard is now going to use that empty column to calculate its final score. And if I go to the end, I can see now that I have a score of 75.2, which matches the Gradebook score of 75.2. So the overall message here is that weighted columns in Blackboard can be dangerous if they're not set up properly, because they can give the student a false information about their final score. Thank you very much. That's the end of this video.